Hey, ninth grade. So welcome to Unit 4. I wanted to make this little video just to show you some of the themes we're going to be working on for the next few weeks while we do remote learning. So welcome to Unit 4. We finished looking at currency and banking, and now we're going to be looking at human rights and laws. What are human rights, and how do we put laws in place to protect them? And in fact, we'll see that even the idea that the government exists and creates laws in order to protect the rights of its citizens is a somewhat new idea. And we'll trace the development of that idea from a guy named John Locke. How do we as a society balance stability and freedom? Sometimes in more formal contexts, this is called striking a balance between liberty and order, but I think freedom and stability makes it a little bit more relatable. For example, some examples from your daily life. Like, you have all the freedom in the world to go like this, right? And you have all the freedom in the world to go like this, right? Like fist pump and dance in a silly way. Okay, the freedom to swing your fist ends at somebody else's face, right? At that point, your freedom to sort of do whatever you want with your arms ends because it's damaging somebody else. Okay, that's a pretty obvious one, I think, that we can agree with, or we could probably all have some agreement with. One where it becomes a little bit more negotiable, maybe, is like a Friday cupcake scenario. We have dessert at Hewitt's only on Fridays. And let's say you get down there early and there are 50 cupcakes and you want all of them. Or you just want 10 of them and you want to bring them to you and your friends. Probably you won't. Probably you'll just grab one, maybe you'll grab two. Probably you wouldn't take the entire tray of cupcakes and hoard it just for yourself. There are a few reasons you wouldn't do that. One, it's against the rules of the cafeteria, right? We stand online, we don't grab everything all at once. But even more powerfully than that, it's probably violating some sort of social norm, some sort of sense of fairness that you have, that you wouldn't want somebody else who came down and saw the cupcakes before you to take all the cupcakes, thereby denying you your cupcakes. So there you go. You would have so there is an example of a balance between the freedom to eat as many cupcakes as you want, and some stability. The idea that for you to get one cupcake now and maybe have consistent cupcakes in the future, we have to maintain some stability, some system. A more extreme version of this is, I really like my apartment. It feels a little bit small right now because I'm under lockdown, but I can't just go next door to the apartment next door and be like, this is my apartment now, and just put a door between and expand my living room so that we could have an enormous lecture hall instead of me on my couch. There are lots of things that stop me from doing that. First, I might say on a really basic level, even besides the matters of the law, it's who's stronger. Can I beat up my neighbor and take his apartment? I've seen that guy. I don't think that I could beat him up. So in terms of brute force, I probably just lack the brute force to do it. And in fact, I enjoy the fact that there's a system protecting him who is almost certainly stronger from coming in and taking my apartment, since his apartment also probably feels pretty small right now. Okay, so there we have two sort of somewhat silly examples, but examples where your freedom, or ways in which you're probably totally willing to give up a little bit of your freedom to eat all the cupcakes, your freedom to swing the arms, your freedom to live wherever or claim property wherever as yours, for some sense of stability. But those examples, especially the cupcake and the apartment examples, sort of imply that that the only reason you're doing this is kind of out of a sense of you wouldn't want somebody else to do it to you. where you fall on the political spectrum, say if you are more of a socialist or more of a capitalist or sometimes a libertarian, capitalists can sometimes be called libertarians, often depends on how you define freedom. Are you free to buy whatever you want and spend your money however you want? Or are you free from material constraints like the need to eat, sleep, have a safe place to live, and connect with others? And in fact, socialists and capitalists both sort of see the opposing camp as somehow limiting their freedom, right? A capitalist would say, you're limiting my freedom to do whatever I want with the materials and property and money that I have by telling me how to spend it or by taxing it. And a socialist says, you are limiting my freedom to live to my full potential by, in a sense, making me enslaved to having a job that's really long, or living a life without an education or without literacy, so that I can't have access to the ideas that I need to become a fully realized human being. Okay, so probably in practice, socialists actually favor stability slightly more than the libertarian capitalist would. That's why they favor social services like universal health care and aid for the poor and the elderly. But they favor these things to make us all free from being enslaved to the needs of your body. Negotiating freedom and stability is at the heart of the governmental response to the COVID pandemic right now. Are we all free to just go out and infect as many people as we like? Probably not. But let me put that question in a way that sounds a little bit more reasonable, but is basically the same question. Are we free to continue doing business, buying and selling things, if we are putting a significant portion of the population at risk? Aren't we putting more at risk by shutting down our economy and plunging huge amounts of people into economic uncertainty? Okay. Those are the kinds of negotiations that are going on, I think, on a very personal level, as well as at a governmental level. So, in this unit, you're going to figure out exactly how you define freedom. We will start by looking at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and thinking about, can you see? And thinking about what are human rights. We'll look at a few case studies. Okay, the first one that you can start reading today is looking at Japanese feudalism. We'll see a society that very much so favors order over freedom, to perhaps huge advantages. Then we'll, for advantages for everybody, not just for the leader. European Enlightened despots. Can an absolute ruler, a ruler with total control, if such a thing is possible, ever be held truly accountable to the needs of his or her people? Okay. We'll be looking at the European Enlightenment, which lasts kind of from 1650 to 1800, and looking at what philosophers thought when they asked themselves questions like, how can we create a rational society? And what role does the government play in balancing stability and freedom? So kind of the questions I just talked to you about. And finally, when you turn philosophy into action, how does it change? We're going to look at a few significant revolutions in which a group of idealistic people really wanted to put what they thought a government should be into place. So we'll look at the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, and a series of revolutions. It's something like 35, but everyone loses count, in 1848 in Europe. And I'll even talk to you a little bit about the Russian Revolution, which didn't happen until 1917, but is fascinating and gory. So in addition to the different historical topics we'll be looking at, we'll also be asking ourselves some philosophical questions. What makes a philosophical question? It's a question about how the world works, maybe not in just one context, but in multiple contexts. Going from the individual case to the universal. And how should the world work? Philosophy is an aspirational endeavor. It wants to, by asking ourselves philosophical questions, we want to make the world a better place. We want to use our understanding to make the world a better place. And we'll see that idea of progress is very much so an enlightened idea that continues to shape our world. So, some philosophical questions. Does our society prevent many adults from being autonomous individuals? For instance, does our society favor autonomy, meaning self-determination, for a small group of people at the expense of the freedom of others? Another question about punishment and prisons. Is it more barbaric to punish a person by taking, say, their hand, or a piece of their body, or a piece of their freedom? Also, how do you measure freedom? Is it measured in time? So why is it that we find it, you'd probably find it strange and wrong if somebody said, oh, I went to prison and they punched me in the face and then I left right after that. That was my punishment for whatever crime I committed. You might think that was really weird. Whereas you might think it's really normal that somebody received a sentence of 8 to 9 months for X or Y crime. So why is that? Why is it that we as a society have decided that corporal punishment to the body is wrong, but taking away freedom and stealing someone's time, that's just fine? Also, so prison sentences are measured in time. So is much of your time at school, right? In measuring out your day and saying you have to be here from 9 to 10 and you have to be there from 10 to 11, in some ways is society training you to have your freedom defined in specific units and taken away from you by training you by training you to give up your freedom in little increments, so that by the time you get your 9 to 5 job, you're really used to it. You're really used to just giving away pieces of your freedom. And what does that mean for us as a society? Okay, I'll end there, and I'll see you at our designated time later on today.